I had a senior level executive from Exxon come to our church, and he had led in Virginia at a great church, a massive ministry. And he comes to our place and he's like, hey, I would love to lead here. I mean, his leadership skills are off the chart. I mean, he's leading one of the biggest corporations in America, and he loves the local church, and he's led there. But I'm like, I would love for you to lead here too. He's like, what do I need to do? I'm like, you need to go sit under other leadership that we've already approved and that we trust. And we want to see how you live together in our community. Do you become part of this culture? Is this something you really want? Because the worst thing in the world would be that we're going to put our hand on you and our name on you, and people are going to trust everything that church product means and the leadership says, and they're going to go to you. And 3 months later, you're going to be like, this isn't really for me.
Welcome to the Church Digital Podcast. Through this podcast, we'll talk about the technological innovations within the church. But more than tech for tech itself, we'll address deeper questions. Is disciple making possible digitally? How should we approach the digital mission field? Can a biblically grounded church operate in digital space? Oh, and where does the metaverse fit into all this? Whether you're a big or small church, an established church, or a startup church plant, the Church Digital's goal is to help churches like yours learn to be a multiplying church, digitally and physically. Our heart, that churches like yours would discover a newfound focus on disciple making that will revolutionize your church. And now, here's your host, Jeff Reed.
All right, hey, it's episode 250 here at the Church Digital Podcast. I can't believe we've done 250 of these conversations today not today, but oh my gosh, 250 conversations one day. That's another conversation for a different day. 250 shows talking about digital, talking about metaverse church, talking about digital church, digital discipleship, phygital. Are we still allowed to say phygital in 2023? I kind of got booed off the stage for saying that in 22, so I'm kind of afraid to bring it back in 2023. But man, it's been a great ride here, and definitely looking forward to more coming up in digital and in metaverse space. And we've got a great show coming up for you right here. Before we get there, I want to talk to y'all about He Gets Us. It's an online evangelical option where we're helping connect people with spiritual questions, spiritual explorers. We're helping connect these people with churches. It's funny, Tyler Sansom, a friend of mine, as we're doing this recording right now, told me the other day that through He Gets Us, First Capital Christian Church, Church Anywhere, has connected with 580 people that had spiritual questions over the span of maybe call it 6 weeks, a little less than 2 months. 580 people. Incredible opportunities to get connected with people that are looking for spiritual help. And if you're comfortable with digital discipleship, digital ministry, man, there's incredible opportunity for you to do this. Go and check out theChurch.digital/He Gets Us. And oh, by the way, it's free. That's a conversation for a different day. But you know what? The volunteer team that you're going to need to resource all these people you're going to meet in the He Gets Us, we're going to talk about that right here in this conversation today. Because coming in, we've got Jason Shepperd in the conversation. Jason, thank you for joining us today.
Man, honored to be around you, Jeff. Anytime I get to hang out with you is a good time for me. Thank you.
Yeah, so Jason, as I recall, was actually on 2021. I think it was one of the last podcasts we did in 2021. We really dove into what is a network, what does a church network do? And yeah. Jason was kind of dual purpose. I don't know if you realized, but I was kind of like trying to figure out what to do with digital church network. What does it look like? And so I brought Jason in, who runs like a house church network and a church project network, and a man who like just genuinely uses the word network a lot. And I was like, hey, what does that even mean? What does that look like? And so, man, I love that conversation we had a year or so ago.
Me too.
And looking forward to this one.
Yeah, me too, man. I remember it. It doesn't feel like it's been a year, but this is a good time, man. Hey, by the way, I do a decent amount of these. You do a great job letting conversations happen and not wasting time and getting the best stuff out of a moment. You're really good at that. So thanks for doing a great job at that.
Oh man, I appreciate that, and I know you're a man of limited words, and so let's crack the whip and let's. I'm kidding. It's a lot of fun being on podcasts and doing this. Well, after 250 of them, I guess you kind of get your rhythm down, yeah. and let's just get into this. Right. So here's what we're talking about today. Jason is running a microchurch. Well, I tell you what, Jason, before I talk about what we want to talk about, just maybe set the stage here a little bit for the audience, because you're doing a house church network, church project network. You're a man of sometimes I feel like I've got a lot of jobs. I feel like you're one of those guys that's like right there with me, just a lot of responsibilities, hands in a lot of different things. Maybe just give the audience here just a brief summary of who you are and what drives you.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for asking, Karen. Yeah, my name is Jason Shepperd. I started Church Project in 2010 with an idea of being a decentralized, distributed leadership, diverse community kind of church. We didn't have all of our nomenclature back then for sure. Never experienced this, been a part of it, didn't really know who to learn from. So jumped out of the airplane, had been working at really good churches by all definitions of church before that, and left a really great church, super centralized. And I wanted to be a part of something that was deconstructed, decentralized, distributed leadership. And a lot of that really came from my convictions of studying scripture, church history, the global church. And I couldn't unsee that anymore. So I started Church Project with no people, no place, no money, no name. In fact, Church Project was the idea. I had to get a 501c3 or a bank account or something for somebody could give something. And I thought, well, I don't want to come up with a stupid church name like we hear so many of them. So I'm like, this is the idea, Church Project, and then we'll figure out a name later. And it just sort of stuck. And now I don't really care. I just care about what we do more than what we're called. But Church Project is a church of house churches. And so we are one church made up of many house churches. We're a church of thousands of people with no phone number, no foyer, no visible staff available to the city. You can't find my name or any of our staff on our website, on our signs. I mean, it's really a different approach to what I and most others have experienced with church. And so we've distributed pastoral leadership to house church pastors. We live in diverse communities that people connect directly into, geographically based. And then we're planting other churches who are doing the same. We have church projects planted and planting, and plans to plant more. People we're assessing right now. And then we have House Church Network, which is a network of people who won't be church projects. They may differ in name or nomenclature or approach or even aspects of their theology, although central, evangelical, whatever all that means to us, we would align with. But we have church people who want to be churches of house churches all over the nation and other nations that we're meeting with and helping develop that. And we've also started something called Good City, which is our approach to do things in the city well beyond our church. That's been a lot of fun. We're starting a clinic. We're starting co-work space for ministry, supporting professionally nonprofit leaders in our city through accountants and attorneys and business development and things like that. So yeah, I got a lot going on, but it's full but not frantic. It feels good.
That's great. And so Jason is leading a series of decentralized movements. As we look at what Digital Church Network is, or even what we want to challenge our digital churches and our metaverse churches to become, to be honest, a lot of that decentralized view is what we see being successful in 2022, and I'm assuming beyond. And what's fascinating, in the conversation here, and I was joking with Jason off air, it's like, hey, Jason, I'm not looking for a deep dive from you from a technological standpoint here and in the podcast. And do you have anything you would want to share from it? No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to do that. Like he's just that's not really his voice and his place on that. But what I really want to dig into with the show here is the person, is the volunteer, is the owner of the vision. Because as we're talking about house churches, we're talking about an individual that's responsibility is to open up the house on a Sunday morning, is a person with a 9-to-5 job that's teaching, that's preaching, that's engaging with people relationally. Like there's in microchurch movements, there's a high level of ownership on bivocational people, on people these people are not getting paid to do the ministry. But when we see physical churches, there's oftentimes volunteers. There's a lot of disconnected. There's a lot of, man, I need a break. It's a hard season. Let's take a stop. Like you don't see that level of ownership. And even as we look at some of the digital churches, as they're trying to distribute their vision forwards, I don't know that we found the secret sauce yet, like the microchurch network is. And so I almost want to dig in here with the podcast. Not really like, let's set aside that it's a technological podcast or even the idea of a digital church, and let's just really start to explore maybe this idea of how do we get volunteers, bivocational people, how do we get them to buy into the mission and vision of something like a microchurch or like a digital church in that context? So, let me just ask the question. I'll just throw it out there. Jason, how do you do that? How do you get somebody with a 9-to-5 to open up their house, to make the commitment to teach the sermons? How do you get, because there's a lot of time that gets invested into this, I would imagine. Like what's the secret?
Well, yeah. And beyond that, I mean, our house church pastors are doing weddings and funerals. All benevolence happens through house church. Frontline of counseling happens in house church. Community, it's the primary means of discipleship and community. So yeah, I think there has to be some reason why people want to do this. And we have longevity too. I mean, we have people who have been doing this a really long time. Occasionally people are like, hey, I got to quit. I'm tired or I need a break, but not often. That's not our primary approach from people. It's longevity because they've built something that they want to sustain. They want to see it continue. And so because they've invested so much, they don't want to just back out. And so I think, I'm in a little bit of both worlds. We're in the predominant model, prevailing model, whatever people are saying, church, the traditional centralized church. We see people in that world and talk to people in that world all the time. And I'm in the microchurch world. What I am seeing in the microchurch world that people are trying to correct right now, that they feel like is lacking in the microchurch world, I think it would translate into the digital church world too, because you're still talking about people. And that is this. There needs to be some centralization that connects the decentralized entities. There has to be some form of centralization. And I think the microchurch ideology has swung the pendulum a little bit, and people then are isolated. Generally, most people are not pioneers, and most people cannot do this on their own for very long. And so there has to be some centrality for direction, for support, for accountability, for encouragement. And so, I mean, we're with 250 of our leaders this past Sunday night for a big Christmas thing. We fed them, we gave them gifts, we thanked them. The notes we get back from it, the encouragement they get, they need people to support them. They need direction. They need encouragement. I mean, they're in the trenches. They're doing everything I'm saying they're doing. We don't have any other way for that to happen. They are doing it, but they're supported and they're encouraged. I'll give you an example. I use this sometimes because it's real and it's clear. Maybe I've given it to you, but this guy came to our one of our gatherings, and I met him, and I said, "Tell me your story. What do you have a God story? Is that part of your life yet or not?" So he told me his God story, and then I'm like, "Well, do you have a church, a community story of other Christians that you live life with?" And he told me that. I said, "Well, why are you here today?" And he said, "I've been a part of a house church for 5 years." But I said, "Well, why here now?" And he said, "My house church shut down." And I said, "Why?" He said, "The house church pastor, we met in their restaurant. It was a restaurant they had. We used that as sort of our little house church, same community for 5 years." And he said, then the guy, got cancer, got sick, and had to sell the restaurant and move to be with his family. And I said, "I hate that he got cancer. I'm sorry that you're going through that. And I'm sorry you lost your house church." I said, "Here, let me tell you what would have happened. We would have stepped in and we would have cared for this family, probably paid the bills at their restaurant, helped them keep their restaurant functioning, helped their family, given them meals. We would have done all kinds of things. We would have helped somebody else step up and elevate and be the house church pastor there. And or we would have blended them together with another house church while he's going through this healing. We would have had support under and around all of you so that you could continue meetings as a community. We would have helped you." But people are isolated. We talk about megachurch pastors putting themselves up as the main person without any other people to help them or hold them accountable. We're also doing that in microchurches. There's nobody holding a microchurch pastor accountable. There's nobody supporting them when they're in need. There's nobody saying, "Hey, You got to take a Sabbath day a week. You got to rest with your wife. I mean, you're working, as an engineer 5 days a week, and you're doing this 2 days a week. You're going to burn out. I mean, so we've done the same thing with microchurch that we've done with megachurch. And so I think there has to be a centrality for accountability, for support, for encouragement, for resourcing, for training. And so I think the main thing is there are people out there who want to do what you're leading them to do, but they're probably not supported well. Also, they don't have the clarity of vision. And so we're giving people a consistent clarity of vision. They know exactly what we're calling them to do. And then we're calling them to accountability with that all the time. We have somebody meeting with that person once a month. We collectively meet with all of them every other month. And so I think the connectivity across microchurches or even digital churches is crucial. And I think it's been overlooked. That's
interesting. You said, so talking centralized, and I want to get into what you centralize with it and some pros and cons in that space. But let's dig into the accountability piece, because you centralized accountability is what you were describing. How does an organization that is not paying a person bring about accountability in that structure? How would a microchurch network hold a microchurch volunteer, microchurch pastor, microchurch leader accountable? What would that even look like?
Well, it's a great question. For us, it's answered really simply. People don't want to do this alone. And so we have accountability based upon our agreements. I mean, we have agreed before anybody onboards, this is what it means to be a church project house church. For example, our overseers made a decision that we asked all of our house churches to do. We rarely make these kind of decisions. It was a period in time over the last couple of years that we felt like all of us need to do this. And so we asked them to do that. All but one of our house church pastors said, we're going to do that. I found out that through our channels that there was a house church pastor who said, hey, we're not going to do that. We're going to go on our own to do this. So I decided myself to call this guy. And I said, hey, man, I said, I just want to check in with you. And I said, congratulations. And he said, on what? And I said, congratulations on starting your own, church and your own network of churches. He said, well, I'm not doing that. And I said, well, you're not doing what you've agreed to do with us. Church project house churches right now are going to do this. After a lot of consideration, conversations, and prayer, we made this decision. You've decided to not do that. So what that tells us is that you're removing yourself from our authority, our accountability, but also our support, our visibility. I mean, this guy had a really strong, enduring, healthy house church. And he knows that a lot of that is because of all that we give him. We give him visibility, we give him support and encouragement, and he doesn't want to be on his own. So really quickly, he said, you're right. I'm going to align myself back with you immediately. And I mean, that was 3 years ago, and he's thriving before and since then. And so people don't want to be alone. I mean, they want the resources of encouragement and oversight. And the cool thing is our centrality offers when things elevate above you, because you're a medical doctor or you're a teacher or you're a fireman, when things elevate above your ability to handle this, we're here to help you. When you ring the bell, we're going to be there right now. And we're going to step in here and help you. So people don't feel alone. They don't feel overwhelmed. They feel supported and encouraged. They don't want to step out there. So they stay. They feel like they stay because we've told them this is what it means to be a church project house church.
And that's what you're speaking to. Accountability is really a lot of quality control, and that is so important. And it was funny, like as you were talking, I was writing down a question. What do you do when somebody wants to do something different? You kind of answered the question right as I was answering it. There's another part of this that's like, it's not a quality control as much as, hey, I need a couple weeks off. I need a break. I need a timeout. I need it's a busy season. Kids' soccer season's coming in, and I need to check out. I got season tickets to watch the Houston Texans. Nobody wants to watch the Houston Texans anymore.
Nothing to watch.
You know what I'm
man.
saying? Yeah, that's true. I'm in Miami, and this is my year. Maybe we got a couple more weeks to figure that out. I hope so too. But I guess my point is, there's, being in Miami, it's very hard for churches because we live in the luxury capital of the world, and there's always something better to do on a weekend. There's always that distraction that pulls away from the churches that do the event on Sunday morning. And so, I'm just wondering, even at that level, how, Houston, what you guys are doing in Texas and beyond, that still is a popular city, Texans or not. So, how do you get that relational equity to keep people tapped in? Is it relationships, or are there other things? What does accountability look like maybe towards that?
To keep people tapped in their individual house churches, or to keep house church leaders connected with us?
House church leaders tapped in and focused on mission.
Well, I think, the cool thing that's going to always endure is people need other people. They want other people. They want to be in relationships with other people. We did find, we drove so hard, pushed so hard for years. When I climb Kilimanjaro or Everest Base Camp, or when I do these climbs, I don't stop on the hard days. I can't stop. I just go. I lead the same way. And so I almost ran people into the ground for years. The few paid staff we had, the volunteers, the many that we had, I just wore them out because I felt like you're lucky to be a part of this almost. This is a beautiful thing. And we can't stop. There's too much. And it wasn't healthy for me, for our people. We had no rhythms of rest in our systems and schedules. So we've instituted those now for our people. In fact, we enforce it. Our leaders, they have to take breaks a couple of times a year. We ask them to. We have a monthly rhythm for them, as well as a couple of annual rhythms. And we've had people that have fought against that. They're like, we're not tired. We don't want to stop. This is going so great. We're enjoying it. We're like, no, you have to rest. We see we're on all the communications channels. We really rarely have to step in and tell people to align with what we've called them to do, because they trust us and they see it. But we've scheduled in rhythms of rest for people. And that includes, hey, your house church is not meeting for this month. You're not meeting. Of course, then what do people do? They go on vacation together. They go to dinner together. But the normal operations and functions of a house church, even dependence on the pastor, leave them alone for this month. Take a rest. It's increased health. It's increased longevity. Of course, there are seasons where people are sick, or where, business escalates and they got to make a change. But we love that too, because we're always working on developing the next house church pastor, the next host, people with hospitality enough to open up their home. And so it forces sometimes rapid multiplication when people say, hey, I got to take a break for 6 months, or I'm going to work overseas for 3 months, or whatever happens here in Houston. We hear it a lot. It forces rapid multiplication. So we're always in leader development, meaning, who are you raising up? I don't want to get into, corporate leadership development training language. I'll get into, hey, you're Paul, who's Timothy, who's Crescens, who's Titus, who are these people that you're finding and saying, man, you've been sitting, now it's time to start leading, start pastoring. And so we're always working with the leaders on who are you raising up to deploy and to multiply. And so we create rhythms of rest, and then we have somebody ready to go whenever those things inevitably happen. It's
beautiful. We adopted the language apprenticing from New Thing, our discipleship partner. They're huge on apprenticing and always having that apprentice, and that's what we're slowly baking into DCN. So maybe talk to me a little bit. How do you grow a Timothy to be a Paul? What's the time frame? What's the process through some of that?
Yeah, Paul told Timothy, all about my life. And it's life on life for us. The way that would happen in a house church is, let's say a house church pastor sees some guy in his house church that he says, I think you may be the person to plant another house church out of our house church. So he starts spending time with that person, more than likely a one-on-one discipleship relationship. We train all of our house church pastors and hundreds of other people in our church on how to disciple somebody. I mean, we have it down. We've refined it. It's powerful and it's pure and it's simple. It took years for a guy on our team to refine it. I would help him refine it where I would see problems, but he spent the majority of his time in leadership doing this. And it's just beautiful. So we have that happening in every house church, one-on-one discipleship, men on men, women on women. And house church pastor is going to be discipling somebody specifically too all the time, one or two or three people. And they're going to know that one or two of these people are ready to become a house church pastor. Then we have sort of a pipeline of that. We're going to approve that first. We have an overseer over all the house church that'll meet with this person and really press into some things with them theologically, personally. The house church pastor is going to start discipling this person every week. Talk to me about your marriage, your finances, your health, your parenting. How is Jesus infusing every aspect of your life? We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about their pastoring. Part of that development is, hey, I want you to start discipling somebody else in our house church. I want you to handle this situation for me. And we start letting them step into some of the pastoring in a house church, and we see how they do. I mean, but we're already watching them, right? We watch how people listen to them. We watch how they care for other people. We watch how they're just spontaneously stepping into situations and pastoring people. And so it becomes pretty easy to identify who the next person is, who's rising to the top, who cares about this. And then we just really get them ready. We get down into acute things of life and doctrine and leadership and pastoring. And we got people in the pipeline. I mean, I got, just the Woodlands right here. I think we have 25 people in our pipeline that are being prepared to go plant house churches this spring.
All right. So let me ask this. Like every person that wants to launch a church or a house church in your context, everybody goes through some sort of apprenticing process. Like there's not a skip jail, go straight to go. Like is there 100% it has to go through some level of apprenticing?
Absolutely. I mean, I had a senior level executive from Exxon come to our church, and he had led in Virginia at a great church, a massive ministry. And he comes to our place and he's like, hey, I would love to lead here. I mean, his leadership skills are off the chart. I mean, he's leading one of the biggest corporations in America, and he loves the local church, and he's led there. But I'm like, I would love for you to lead here too. He's like, what do I need to do? I'm like, you need to go sit under other leadership that we've already approved and that we trust. And we want to see how you live together in our community. Do you become part of this culture? Is this something you really want? Because the worst thing in the world would be that we're going to put our hand on you and our name on you, and people are going to trust everything that church product means and the leadership says, and they're going to go to you. And 3 months later, you're going to be like, this isn't really for me. I'm like, so I'm going to watch you for a while. I mean, there's a principle of this that Paul told Timothy. Don't even let a recent convert get into this leadership situation yet, because they can become prideful. I mean, we need to know them and watch them. And so, yeah, we're going to do that. There's no way to have accountability. There's no way to have alignment and quality if you do not have some kind of proving period with people. I'm seeing people just so quickly say, hey, go do this. That's great myopically. There are aspects of that I really love, right? Like, I'm going to help you plant a church in a day. That's great. But who is this person? And how are we helping them? I will say this. Here's what I love about the Apostle Paul. The Apostle Paul did this. There are times he spent 3.5 years in Ephesus. Sometimes he spent 1.5 years somewhere else. There are times he spent a day. Sometimes he spent a day, and Ralph Moore and I have talked about this. Paul would spend a day. He would go into a town, stay with somebody overnight, lead them to Jesus, disciple them all night, get up the next morning, get ready to go. And you're the two elders of the church. And it said he entrusted them to the leadership of the Spirit. That was his default. That wasn't his primary way. But here's what I say this often. Paul would always follow up in person when he could. In proxy, when he could not be there, he would send somebody on his behalf, or by pen, he would follow up. We would write to them. We do videos for people. We'll do training. And so Paul was anticipating accountability, alignment. I mean, he entrusted a lot to them, but he held them accountable in person, by proxy. I'm going to send Timothy, Titus, Crescent to you, whoever. or by pen, he would follow up with them and hold them accountable there as well. And so if there is a quicker, a more rapid deployment of somebody leading a church, but you don't know who they are, I think there's a lot of accountability in that. I think we should make sure we know who we're entrusting to the leadership, and then we have to hold them accountable, especially if we didn't have a long time to train them and prove them. We need to have a lot of accountability in person, in proxy, or by pen after we send them out.
Person, proxy, pen. That's really good. I'll have to remember that.
Please quote me.
Let's that was good. Let's drill into maybe some specifics, more modern. Not that proxy, person, and pen don't make sense in modern space, but how do we apply this? Like you just told me a couple minutes ago, hey, we got 25 people in the Woodlands ready to get apprenticed. You've got a network, you've got an infrastructure, you've built it for apprenticing. And so you've got the bench and you've got the coaches that can do it. We always need more coaches, but I'm willing to bet you've got some sort of infrastructure.
Yeah.
A lot of the people that we're working with in digital space, one dude, it's a husband and a wife. Maybe there's a third person in the mix. Like this is grassroots. This is early days. What did apprenticing look like for you all early? Or maybe what have you seen from some other spaces? Because you talked about fast tracking and kind of growing through this. What advice would you give for somebody that's maybe it's a lone guy out there trying to build this thing from scratch?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And let me also say, I was there too. I mean, I really try to, when people come to where we are now, I do everything I can to unravel what we've done and get back to the beginning and say, I'm not kidding, we had no money, we had no people, we had no place, we had no identity, and we had nobody ahead of us that we could learn from. Nobody in Houston that I was aware of was using, nobody anywhere used the phrase a church of house churches. Had no idea who to learn from. I was scared, I was isolated, and I had no resources. So I understand, and I have a huge heart for the people who are starting. I think one of the mistakes that people make early on is they let go of values in order to, core conviction values. They let go of those in order to just get some help or just get some resources. And they lose their identity more quickly than they realize because it's hard to recover that. Early on, the decisions you make are more important than the decisions I make today. There are a lot of people here who could absorb my worst mistakes. There are people there's a culture created now that's way beyond me. But early on, I would tell our people, we are 6 decisions in 6 months away from not existing or not being who we are or who we want to be. And so early on, my job, I feel like, was to very clearly communicate who we were. I frankly think most people don't have that down yet when they start. So people don't know what to align to. And so I know I work with church planners weekly, and most of them, they don't know what to call people to. And I'm not talking about like a slick mission statement, vision statement, pamphlet, whatever. I'm talking about there's no clear opportunity of who are you going to be and what do you want me to do with that? And so I think refining that and clarifying that is one of the biggest things that people need to do. Number one, who are we and what do I want you to do to be a part of it? Most people are just saying, hey, just watch me. Whether it be online or come sit in a seat sometimes on a Sunday. I say most churches are this. We just want you to come sit in a seat sometimes on a Sunday and sing some songs and listen to a sermon. That's all we want you to do, and give. But we're way beyond that here. If you come here, this is what this means. We clarified that very early on. Secondly, we had core convictions of diverse communities. There was massive resistance to this because nobody was coming from that. Everybody was in homogenous communities, right? Older people, just like me, younger people, black, white, brown, married, unmarried, rich, poor, mature, immature believer. They were all homogenous where they came from. And we're diverse. I mean, you may have people of different colors of skin, different places in their walk with Jesus or not walk with Jesus, older, younger, married, unmarried. And so that was a core conviction, though, that we weren't going to let go of. So no matter the resistance, or we could have grown more quickly, we could be a lot bigger than we are now if we let go of some of our other values, but we wouldn't be who we are. So clarity and calling, number one. And then core convictions that you don't let go of, number two. Those, for me, I think, from all the people we work with, are the biggest things. And then the third C, let me say that. Well, thank you. I'm alliterating as we go. Please remind me later what I said.
I'm writing it down right now because it's very good.
Thank you. I probably should too. Yeah. But I mean, clarity and calling, core convictions that you don't let go of. I think I just let go of my last thing. Oh, no.
Did you lose the last C? Come on.
Centralization. Here's what people are rebelling against: all forms of centralization to their own demise. And here, I was a science major in college. And so I love the word, I love the word organic. I love the word systems. It's one of my top 5 favorite S words: steaks and sleep and other words I really love. I love the word systems. I love the word organic. There's nothing more organic than our human body, and it has functioning systems based on a centrality, but it's invisible, it's autonomic. You don't even think about our systems. We just want to be healthy. And if we're healthy, our systems will autonomically operate. And most churches are not organic. They are organizations. They're not an organism. They're an organization. The systems, keeping the systems going is the purpose of most churches. If they don't want to admit that, I understand that. I worked in that. I propagated that. Keeping the systems going in most churches, that's what they exist for, and they don't even realize it. For us, we've created systems, but they're invisible behind the scenes. You can't even see them. You don't even see the people who run them. But there have to be some systems that are functioning from a centrality. That's my main role, and the people who work with us. I just left somebody today. I love them very much. They lead a great church. They have 4 or 5 times as many people on staff as we do. Most of their stuff is going right inside their walls of their church. They're doing great things. I love it, but that's not what I want to do. So, but they're super centralized. We have some invisible centralization. And I would say the third C for any of your people, if you're going to grow, that means you're going to scale, you're going to multiply, you're going to reproduce yourself. You have to have some centrality for alignment, accountability, support, resourcing. Don't hate centrality so much that it keeps you from multiplying. So, but resist it enough that you don't become over-centralized and move from an organism to an organization.
Okay, I want to pull that thread because this is something I've experienced in some of the organizations. Some of the things that I've tried to do. We've tried to be decentralized, but at the beginning, for me, I couldn't let everybody do whatever they wanted because I needed to get the focus of the DNA in place. Right. So at the beginning of starting a decentralized movement was actually probably some of the strongest times where I actually stood on centralization of saying, this is the way that we have to do it, or this is the vision of what we're trying to do. This is the sandbox that we can play in. Yeah. But there's a centrally defined barrier because that's organizationally what we were doing. Am I? And I'm looking for genuine feedback here. Like, is that the right way to do that? Am I trying to be too controlling from a centralized level in infancy? Like, give me some direction.
You don't need my direction. I mean, you've done and are doing and will be doing some great stuff. And let's answer the question by looking at the alternative. If not, then what are you at all? If there's no clarity, then you have no need to be communicating anything. There's a guy named Bill Hull out of California. I think he's around 80, former basketball player, discipleship. I mean, you got Dietrich Bonhoeffer to Dallas Willard. Dallas Willard discipled Bill Hull. Bill Hull's discipled me some. This guy's incredible. And I talked to him about this same thing, Jeff. I just said, Bill, I feel like maybe I'm too dogmatic on our ecclesiology, the church of house churches. Like, I can't unsee this. I am convinced and convicted about it, right? I mean, this is my world. I am convinced and convicted about these things, and I'm really clear. And I said, sometimes people accuse me of being too dogmatic or too whatever about it. And he said, Jason, we need more ecclesiological clarity, not less. And so, Jeff, if whatever you're leading, it's not clear what it is and what you want other people to do, then you're not leading anything. I mean, everything has some clarity. It has some substance to it, some structure. So I think we're looking for people who they have been looking for this, and we're giving them what they're looking for. I mean, you know this too, Jeff. You experience it all the time. We find people who say, I've had this in my head for years. I just didn't know how to do it or what to do. I didn't have language around it, or I didn't have form around it. And I'm like, that's great. You don't need to. Now we have language for you. We have form for you, and we're inviting you to participate in it. And so we're going to, I guess maybe I'm wrong, but I'm going to keep clarity until the day I'm not here. I mean, I think that's my job, is to protect the clarity of who we are and what we're called to do. And not everybody's going to want that, but I'm not trying to get everybody in the world here. I just think, but I'm so crazy. I think everybody, it's not, I say we're not for everybody, but we should be.
Let me pull that thread. This is good here. Because there is an opportunity to change. There may be a good idea that doesn't generate from you. You were talking about your guy that pivoted and did something, I don't want to get into the weeds on that, but completely out of context, something completely different. Hey, congratulations on your launch, because you're not anything with, but there is some level of, hey, maybe this is a learning opportunity or an experiment that maybe you're learning something and then rolling that out in digital space. There's definitely avenues for that.
Yeah.
And so what does missional imagination, what does growing in I'm saying the word evolving, mean that nicely, but evolving into something different, do you have any examples of that within your context, or how would someone healthily grow to challenge the organization to do something different? Like, what would that even look like?
Well, it's a great question. And there's a ton of interaction between all of our leadership, out there leading house churches and the people who oversee it. And so we'll very often have suggestions on different approaches and different ways to affect what we're doing. And we learn from those. And sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. But when somebody wants to take what we're doing and do something altogether different, I mean, we've had people do that. Here's what we have found. We have found people who want to do exactly what we're doing, but they want to do it without any accountability, or they want to do it on their own. And so, we bless them and they go do that. 100% of the time, it hasn't worked well for them. When somebody wants to do something altogether different, we have found, man, let's see how we can help you do that. And but I will say, Jeff, we don't experience that a whole lot because it's super clear of what we are and what we're trying to do. So most people are so engaged in trying to make this a healthy thing that they're not trying to think of, well, what if we went down here and did this? And so, like, if people want to start homogenous communities of something else, I mean, that's great. Go do that. We support that. And actually, our house church structure wants you to be doing that. And so how can we support you in that? But I also don't apologize that we are not everything to everyone. I mean, this is who we are. We're real clear on who we are. We want to become healthier and better and stronger. But this is who we are. If you're wanting to do something that's not who we are, we'd like to help you do that or get you connected to somebody who can. But I'm not that great, and I'm not going to live that long to become excellent at a whole lot of things. So if I try to do what you're doing, it would take me 3 lifetimes to figure it out. I just can't do it. So we do a lot of partnerships with other people to say, hey, look, what you're trying to do is awesome. Let's get you connected to people in that world. But I'm not trying to be everything for my city, but we're trying to be something substantial here. And for us, that's fairly targeted.
That's fascinating. It's good to know who you are. It's good to know who you're not. And, I love one of the things that we're working on is an ecosystem of partners that we're collaborating with in digital space to hand off to. And so I love the idea of working together and collaborating. It's one thing that, I don't mean this rudely, but the established church, prevailing, physical, whatever your term is, has often struggled with.
You're right.
But it's one of the things, as I look at the microchurch networks, how you all have been learning from each other and working together. Digital, some of the opportunities that we're championing through Digital Church Network, and metaverse is an incredible opportunity for collaboration.
Yeah, I bet.
Like, it's really exciting to see how we're kind of changing the game here. Hey, this has been an incredible conversation. Jason, Shepperd, thank you for jumping on here and really giving us some insight as we're trying to figure out. Let me ask last question.
Great.
I had somebody. So I had this conversation with someone. Maybe it was 2020. Maybe it was 2021. I can't even remember who it was right now. I couldn't put a name on it. But I used the word accountability, and the guy, it was. Oh, I know exactly. I'm not going to say it was, but I now have the face in my head. He says, Jeff, never say the word accountability
right.
in front of a church person, because like a church volunteer, they don't want to be held accountable. They want to be encouraged. I'm just curious. Would you agree with that? Like, do you think that church leadership, volunteers, the people you're working with, that the word accountability is a negative word, or do you say that? Do you adopt that language? I'm just curious your response.
We don't actually use the word accountability a whole lot, but it's very obvious that it's ingrained into who we are. I mean, for me, every real relationship has accountability. In our current culture, which isn't going well, people have shied away from clarity because they think it's control, and they don't want to have clarity because they're seen as controlling. Clarity is not control. Clarity is conviction, and clarity is absolutely necessary for anything to take root and grow. So, and I think people have shied away from the idea of accountability. But I don't know a good relationship that doesn't have some sense of accountability. From my marriage to in our church, and Scripture's replete with accountability, even to overseers and elders. And so, have we shied away from a sense of accountability? We have. Have we overshot that because people have made mistakes in it? We have also done that. And so, I frankly think people want and need accountability. We rarely use the word, but we practice it always. So we have accountability based on our agreements together. And our agreements are based, that's what makes us aligned. And so we have alignment based on our agreements, and we have accountability based on our agreements. And so, yeah, man, I hope that people are holding people accountable to the clarity they've given them. Otherwise, you don't have anything.
By the way, more C words have been said in this podcast than in any other podcast I think that I've done in my life. So thank you for raising the bar on average, I guess.
Thanks.
A bunch of C's or something. I don't know. I'm kidding. It's been awesome.
Right. No, I'm a C guy. That's what I made through college.
Yeah, you're
college and seminary.
I thought I was the only one. I was like I was a B minus, and my kids are like, Dad, what grade did you get in school? I was like, that's not important, kids. Just ignore that.
Don't ask me that again.
keep doing what you're doing. Take after your mother. Hey, listen, this has been awesome, Jason. As we're landing the plane, any closing thoughts?
Well, hey, I would just say, man, thanks so much for what you're doing. I couldn't do it, but I know the world is needed. The gospel has to be there. The church has to grow strong in the digital world, and so you're leading it. I'm encouraged. I'm grateful that you're leading the way you are, and I hope that you just don't stop and you keep going. I think you guys are. I mean, you're heading into space, right? I mean, it's a frontier that we haven't been in and we don't have any clarity on. And so I think I forged some new ground in some ways, not nearly as much as you and people in the church digital world are. So thanks for leading. I I hope that you keep doing it. We're trying to figure out ways that we can partner with you and others like you. So I'm just grateful.
Oh, well, you'll be getting an email from me any day now about some partnership opportunities and things we're working on in this year. But definitely looking forward to it. But for now, we're going to land the plane. We'll have that conversation off of it. But for Jason, founder at Church Project Network, House Church Network, this is Jeff with Digital Church Network and the Church Digital. Bunch of networks running around here. Thanks for jumping on the podcast here. We'll see you next time on the show. You all have a good day.